Welcome back to the Flesh and Blood World Championships. Eric Dolanquist here along with Brian, semifinals caster extraordinaire, and maybe later Gottlieb. And guess what? It is the second semifinal match. We got Daniel Rutkowski taking on Christopher Iaali. It's going to be amazing. But first, let's take a look at that bracket, see where things are lining up here. Of course, we just saw Michael Hamilton grab that first spot into the grand finals, and what a run he's had, right, over the last few months.
In his life, Doa. It's just been an incredible performance from Michael Hamilton. And, you know, something incredible about Michael Hamilton. How's this for self-belief? Michael Hamilton quit his job to focus on preparation for Worlds.
Wow.
Do you think it paid off, Doa?
I think so far so good, yeah. No kidding. I mean, he's in the money and then some, and the chance to call yourself World Championship, he's earned that for him. But now we get to see if he gets to face off against his U.S. Nationals Finals rival in Daniel Rutkowski. If he makes it through, that would be insane to have a U.S. National Finals rematch in the World's Finals. But Christopher Iaali has shown himself to be a pretty devastatingly good Briar player, taking down Fuad Omar on the Dromai. And Christopher's been grinding for a long, long time. Like, frankly, you know, he got a lot of the people in the LA scene and the SoCal scene into the game to begin with. We'll talk a little bit more about him later. But first, let's zero in a little bit on Daniel Rutkowski. This guy has been absolutely incredible as a ninja player, but not just that. We saw him play Dromai in Limited in the draft this weekend. We saw him play Icelander in Blitz. So he really is a man of many stylistic skills, isn't he?
Prior to his living legend, one of the best chain players I had ever seen. Just an absolutely well-rounded flesh and blood player. And I guess under those circumstances, no surprise, a competitive event record of 59-15,
Wow.
Absolutely dominating competitive events.
That is probably one of the highest win rates in competitive that exists out there for sure. And you know, let's take a look at his deck as well. Now, this is the deck that I think most crucially was able to win the Phi Mirror off the back of running the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. And of course, we've got that debate, right, where it's Lynx versus Momentum. Which mask is better? At least today, the Lynx was. But the rest of the deck, very combo-centric, a little bit more well-rounded in terms of providing some of those 3 blocks. It's been a long weekend, but it really is a great way to play the hero, and he pilots it flawlessly.
Oh, yeah, and, you know, all props to the pilot, but also a really good deck builder as well. Has done a fantastic job refining this list over the days and months of playing Phi.
Yeah.
We saw in the Phi Mirror, this is a deck that when it has to play aggro matchups, has that explosiveness you need. And, you know, we talk about Briar's explosiveness and like Channel Mount Heroic, of course, allowing for those big turns. But Daniel Rutkowski kind of has the Phi equivalent to Channel Mount Heroic turns, has those massive Art of War turns backed up by things like Flame Call Awakening, you know, Mounting Anger to find buffs, Rise from the Ashes to further push those Phoenix Flames. Just a really, really explosive deck list. We have to see if Daniel Rutkowski's going to try and approach this the same way he's approached some other aggro matchups and just find the initiative immediately.
Things like Self the Wound as well, running 2 of those. And that's one of those things where you can bring it in at the end of a long combo chain, do an enormous chunk of damage. So a little bit, you know, Briar-esque in terms of bringing those big, tall attacks once in a while. I am very curious. I feel like we're going to probably see him lean towards Mask of Momentum, but it would actually not shock me completely if we saw him run Mask of the Pouncing Lynx in this to just try to take that, you know, massive turn like we saw in the Phi Mirror. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. For now, though, we did catch up with Daniel Rutkowski earlier in the day to talk about his thoughts coming into the quarterfinals. Let's hear what he had to say.
I'm here with Daniel Rutkowski, fresh off of a win here in the first round of this top 8. It's got to feel a little weight coming off your back getting this first win, right?
Oh, my, yeah, it was such a relief. The mirror is always super tight. It can go either way based on draws. It feels very good.
Yeah, and I know that you said before this that you didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I know I wouldn't have been able to sleep. Do you feel charged and ready to go today?
Right now, I feel supercharged. I'll probably rest in between matches and then, yeah, get pumped up.
Now, this was a Phi Mirror that you had here, and you've been playing Phi so well the last couple events. You know, such a close job at Nationals, almost getting it, just falling to Michael Hamilton, which, I mean, who hasn't lost to that guy recently? He seems like he's been steamrolling through everything. So maybe you can get a rematch here today and turn that around. But how do you think about that Phi Mirror?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So we made a big pivot in our mask choice since Nationals.
Okay.
We're pretty high on Pouncing Lynx. Basically, we're willing to give our opponent 1 to 2 draw triggers, and the Lynx makes up for that. We just want them on a faster clock, especially going second. So that played out as expected. I got punished by the draw, but then the second draw was a whiff, so it kind of balanced out. And then it came down to like the end game grind that you see so often, where it's you need to draw your 3 blocks, or you kind of get looped. And luckily, I found them.
Now, with the rest of the bracket, the way that it's looking, there's a bunch of different heroes that you could play against. We've got a very diverse top 8 here. What do you like? Is there something that you're more, okay, hey, like, I like this matchup, or I feel better in this one, and is there any that you're trying to hope to avoid?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely hoping for Dromai, of course. That would be amazing next round. Beyond that, I don't have too much preference. Prefer not to play Oldhim. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of a coin flip, but kind of not. It's just how things line up. That's probably it.
All right, well, go get some rest in between these rounds. You got some big matches ahead of you, hopefully more than one. So good luck the rest of the weekend.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Daniel Rutkowski kind of giving his thoughts before coming into this one. And, he didn't get his wish with the Dromai, I suppose. What Phi wouldn't want to play a Dromai in the semifinals of the World Championships, right? We'll be able to theoretically avoid the Oldhim if he does make it through to the finals. But just a player, I think, again, with like a good attitude towards the game, having a lot of fun this weekend, and certainly one of the best players we've seen come up in Flesh and Blood.
I agree with you 100%, Doa. Calm, collected, very measured, very cool. And I think when it comes to something like the World Championships, no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been playing card games, you get to this stage, those nerves are a factor. You have to be able to
100%.
manage them to go ahead and convert. Yeah. And I see Daniel Rutkowski's just mode, just his moment and his ability to go ahead and just find peace. That's what makes him really inspiring and a really good choice to go ahead and take.
We'll see if he maybe snuck a Zen state into his ninja deck.
Perfect.
After all.
Perfect.
I don't know.
He feels Zen to me. Absolutely.
I don't know if that'll be in there, but either way, on the other side of the matchup is going to be Christopher Iaali from Top Keep Gaming over in Riverside, California. And
Store
Top
close
Deck
to your
Keep
heart,
battle.
Noah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's he travels around the LA area quite a bit. I've played against him in a couple events. He's at a lot of events, obviously, down there. He's considered kind of one of the fathers of the SoCal scene. The play group that he sort of started that got a lot of SoCal's best players into it was called, they just wanted to call it the Experience Group, but all of them call it the Chris Experience. So this is a guy that's really done a lot in terms of not just being good at the game, but also building the game in his region as well. And here he is with a strong competitive record all the way to the semifinals of Worlds. And, again, a player that's very patient, very calculating, not going to make a lot of errors. Made it through that really tight Dromai game, and now he's got another tight one to look at.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Daniel Rutkowski's quest for redemption, trying to get one back from Michael Hamilton. But Michael Hamilton famously won battle-hardened Lille. Do you know who he beat in the finals of that, Doa?
I do know who he beat. It was none other than the man on your screen right now, or at least the man playing the deck on the screen right now, Christopher Iaali. That's correct.
Christopher Iaali also has a reason to seek revenge against Michael Hamilton, having been eliminated in that final round. So, not the only one out for blood today is Daniel Rutkowski, and we'll have to see if Christopher Iaali has what it takes to get through this very challenging aggro mirror. Things like Embodiment of Earth can have a lot of sway over this matchup, but ultimately really looking for those explosive Channel Mount heroic turns.
Yeah, let's take a look at the deck here for Christopher Iaali, too. Before we get into it, though, I wanted to mention, too, yesterday when they had the top 8 players get together for photos and things like that, Michael Hamilton pulled Chris aside and he said, "I'm so happy you're here, man. I'm so happy you made it to the top 8. I want that rematch as well." So a lot of love between all these top players here. It's great to see, right? Everybody's kind of supporting each other, happy for each other's success. And certainly there's been a lot of success found by Christopher Iaali with this Briar Warden of Thorns deck. Fairly, standard as far as Briar goes. It's been a hero that's been around for a while. It's been a very analyzed deck. And this version of it, per se, has been extremely effective this weekend, to say the least.
Yeah, I would call this the traditional build of Briar, kind of in contrast to that Matthew Falks build that took down PT number 2. But what is worth noting here, Doa, should this Briar go ahead and succeed in this World Championships, that's living legend status. That will be it for Briar. And there's something special about being the one to put the hero on the shelf, to really leave your mark on this hero's legacy here in Flesh and Blood. You know Christopher Iaali wants to be the flag bearer for all those Briar champions over the years and go ahead and give that hero the send-off it deserves.
Well, I knew him initially as a Prism player, and he's played a couple other heroes pretty extensively in competitions over the last few years. But yeah, being the one to say, I'm the one who sent Briar to Living Legend, that is yet another feather in your cap of being world champion. So a lot, obviously, a lot hoped for here with Christopher going into this one, but it is not going to be an easy matchup. We did chat with Christopher as well, coming into the top 8 to hear what he had to say about the day, what his expectations were. Let's find out how the conversation went.
We got Chris Iaali here, who just gone through to the semifinals and through the Dragon Horde of Dromai. And when you see a Tumultine that early, does that kind of, tilt you a little bit? Does that rock your boat?
It was definitely scary, especially when it flipped the 2 reds to kill my Crown of Providence right away. But luckily I had a pretty good hand to answer it right away with the Force of Nature. Being able to attack it for 5 and then draw a card off killing it was a pretty nice answer to have at that time.
So Briar was a hero that actually had the best performance through the CC rounds in day 1. It just had the best win rate. It did really well. Were you ever not considering Briar, or was this sort of your locked-in hero from the get-go?
Oh, no, for sure. I was definitely considering Icelander for a good portion of the testing leading up to the event. I had played Icelander in Lille. I had played it at U.S. Nationals. And so, I was pretty comfortable on the deck. I didn't want to face any mirrors, and I was scared of, the Oldhams figuring out the matchup maybe. And it wasn't until a bunch of my friends and testing teammates, they decided that they wanted to play my Briar list from the Soul Calling. And so I was like, all right, I have a lot of experience on Briar too, and I'll go back. And a bunch of us ended up playing the same list, and we all did really well.
So what's the plan now? You got the semifinals coming up. You got a little bit of time in between. Is it just sort of clear your mind and get rid of the noise, or do you have a pre-game routine with such little time?
No pre-game routine, but yeah, I'm just going to try to relax, keep my head clear. I know I got to face Daniel next on Phi, and that's going to be a tough matchup, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Daniel's the real deal, but so are you, my friend. You're going to the semifinals. Good luck moving forward, my friend.
All right, there you have it. Chris Iaali, of course, getting prepped a little bit. Not a ton of time between the matches as well. And, we didn't talk about this enough, I think, during the game. But he had to play that Dromai match, essentially one piece of equipment down from the beginning after losing the Helm to the Tumultai right away. So being able to kind of, fight through that, being able to sort of, have the mental fortitude to come back and win that game as close as it was, kind of leads you to believe this is going to be a really tight one. It's going to be 2 titans of flesh and blood going head to head. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. It is time to start. When I see Daniel Rutkowski on Phi and Chris Iaali on Briar, I'm kind of like Kent Watanabe in that Godzilla movie. I'm like, let them fight. There's nothing more that needs to be said. I want to see these guys throw down.
Oh, an absolute slugfest we're in for here, Doa. Haymakers left and right. We call them jabs when Phi throws them out, but when it comes to Briar, some very large attacks likely to be queued up by Chris Iaali, and there you see our players ready to go. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx for Daniel Rutkowski.
Yeah.
And I have to say I like it in these aggro matchups. I think they're so razor thin. Even if you get one Mask of Momentum trigger, you're probably not getting the second, and you just need to get that damage when you can. And a lovely show of sportsmanship from our players as we kick off the match. That traditional flesh and blood fist bump. One more time.
Oh, the double fist bump for the semifinals. The last 2 players to decide who goes to the grand finals. But yeah, I'm actually really excited to see the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. This may kind of become the new standard in aggro matchups for Phi going forward. I mean, Daniel Rutkowski certainly putting on a clinic for that. We got a Gorganian Tome coming out immediately from Christopher Iaali to start things off, and we'll see where he goes from there.
Yeah, you know where he's going to go, Doa. He's going to go to Channel Mount Heroic, and he's got the blue card ready to pitch, Tome of Harvest, and that is about the best start you can get as a Briar.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Daniel just nodding there. He's like, yep, that does happen sometimes. Embodiment of Lightning as well, of course, gets produced with that. But what is going to be the other plan here for Christopher Iaali? can you leak a little bit of damage through? He's going to swarm in Gloomveil.
Yeah, and this is a well-buffed Swarming Gloomveil here.
Yeah.
Gonna come in for 7, of course, with Go again, multiple ways.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't even need the embodiment for this, because he does have the auras produced from earlier. Now Daniel Rutkowski's chance to respond. And I'd imagine you probably just block this out, but we'll see if he likes his hand too much. You know, that's kind of the question.
Yeah, there are some theoretical hands that could potentially inspire you to leak a small amount of damage here. You know, maybe you want to throw 2 blocks in front of it, take 1.
Filter your hand a little bit.
The problem with that against Briar is it's really hard to allow them to just get a free embodiment of Earth. Like, it's such a game changer. We saw how important the 3 blocks were in the Phi Mirror. Well, Briar can do better than that. Briar can push to 4 blocks in a lot of instances, and those can actually be backbreaking.
Well, a lot of the attacks that Phi relies on to cause you to, you know, give 2 cards, right, are those 4 attack cards, right?
Absolutely.
That's supposed to be the break point that's being effective in Phi. So, yeah, if you have the embodiment of Earth out there, your cards are blocking for 1 more, you certainly can run into some trouble trying to get kind of like over the line as far as that extra point of damage in there. So, deep thoughts being thunken right now by Daniel Rutkowski as he decides how to best handle this. And is he actually going to? Yeah, playing the Art of War, of course, that is an instant. Can definitely throw it down right now. Going to discard that, or banish that rather, for the card draw. And we'll see how he decides to block it. Speaking of giving your cards +1 block.
Yeah, a little bit of extra defense here from the Art of War should make this Swarming Gloomveil block a little bit easier. Potentially leading some better future blocks should Chris Iaali want to go ahead and extend the combat chain a little bit here.
Right. And the thing is and there is the blocks. So I believe that would be, I think that's 2, 3 blocks as well. So that would probably be 8, or at least a 3 and a 2 anyway.
Yeah, full block completed here. Looking to deny that embodiment of Earth. And you see Christopher Iaali saying time to go to Arsenal.
All right.
Gets that Channel Mount Heroic set up, though, critically. And did take an Art of War out of Daniel Rutkowski's hand. So a pretty nice first turn there from Chris Iaali.
I think it was smart for Daniel to use the Art of War, though. I mean, you go into the next turn, you don't have an arsenal. You're not going to be getting probably a ton of value out of the Art of War anyway.
Absolutely.
You know, in this matchup that's as fast-paced as it is, you don't want to just like, oh, I'm just arsenaling the Art of War, a couple weak attacks this turn. Like, no, you want to, if you're going to play that card on your turn, you want to have a big turn set up behind it. So I like that he used that there. Going to throw out the Enlightened Strike now, and ideally, you know, find one of those other Art of Wars a little bit later to have that big offensive turn with it, like we're used to seeing.
Just looking to push through a little damage here.
Yeah, a little damage. Looks like the 5 go again. Is the a 5 draw a card.
Yeah.
I didn't see him pick the card off the deck.
He did,
so.
And now it's time for Snapdragon Scalers to extend this combat chain. Tapping on Mask of the Pouncing Lynx there.
Maybe a little bit of a readjustment. Hard to tell. That was a tap. Was that a readjustment? He's going to throw out the Blaze headlong now, so not choosing to pop the Lynx at that very moment.
Yeah, so basically what Daniel Rutkowski has done here, he's kind of found Christopher Iaali with shields down. The thought is that Christopher probably wants to hold as many cards as possible to take advantage of that Channel Mount Heroic. And Daniel Rutkowski, knowing that, says, okay, I need to push as much damage as possible on this turn. That involves using those Snapdragon Scalers alongside with a different mode of Enlightened Strike, actually make it card neutral and be a 0 for 5, well above curve.
Right, exactly. And you know, we know that Chris Iaali wants to have that huge channel mount turn right on his next one. So like you said, shields down is a great way to describe it. You know that Briar player is going to let the majority of the damage, if not all of it, through this turn. So basically, Chris Iaali is saying, like, I'm going to give you 1 shot. I'm giving you 1 shot. Hit me as hard as you can.
He's putting his chin out right now. We talked about a boxing match here. Christopher Iaali is saying, what's the best you can do?
It's Fight Club right now in the semifinals, basically. And we're going to talk about it anyway. As the blue snatch comes in to try to draw a card to put into Arsenal here at the end of it. That also does get the +1 damage from the Tiger Stripe Shuko as well. So, you know, pretty decent swing from Daniel Rutkowski. Not the biggest chain ever, but not bad by any means.
And I want to point something out, Doa. I don't want to call it a mistake. That Aether Ironweave was used to go ahead and stop the Phoenix Flame. What that means is that when this snatch came through for 3, there's no opportunity to go find a clean block with the equipment. You could have used Aether Ironweave alongside Grasp of the Arknight to get a clean block there and maybe deny an Arsenal. But Christopher Iaali not wanting to give up 4 block worth of defense there, didn't want to cash in Crown of Providence, and therefore
maybe this is why.
Yeah, this is exactly why. This is the combo right now. Force of Nature alongside that Channel Mount Heroic, and that means anything that hits is going to bring a card
Are we
along with it, and it's
Oh,
an
he gets the
actual red
this time.
card.
So if you watch the quarterfinals, you would have seen Chris Iaali flip 3 blues for every single one of his Ravenous Rabble. So finally finding the red to give himself the maximum damage possible, aside from the Gargantuan Tome, of course, on that one. And so that's going to be a big one. 8 damage and the potential to draw a card as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions that go with letting that Phoenix Flame through on the last turn. Like I said, I don't want to call it a mistake. It's just an interesting decision point where perhaps there's an opportunity to go ahead and deny that snatch should you be able to read Daniel Rutkowski for it. But that's a really hard read, too.
You know, and honestly, sometimes, I'm not saying this is what happened for sure or not, but sometimes you're just so used to playing against Mask of Momentum that you kind of autopilot some of that stuff.
It can happen.
Where it came
Absolutely.
right after the weapon came in, you know, you never know, right? But I agree. It's one of those things, too, where it's like, well, maybe this is a way to just, you know, block a clean 1 damage. That 1 HP can certainly make the difference in a matchup like this at the end there.
It matters in almost every game of Flesh and Blood, though. We've seen it throughout the day today, how many games have come down to that last 1 health.
Absolutely. So you would imagine it was probably intentional, but it was an interesting decision for sure.
Speaking of interesting decisions, Daniel Rutkowski is going to face a lot of them on this turn. The combination of Channel Mount Heroic plus Force of Nature, very capable of just snowballing the game out of control. And if you're Christopher Iaali, this is the ideal start. And you see Daniel Rutkowski forced to commit some equipment here along with cards from hand.
Wow, and I mean,
full block.
I know you want to block this, but man, it feels pretty bad to lose the Tiger Stripe Shuko so early in the game. You know, I know this is a matchup that doesn't necessarily have a lot of turns to it too, but yeah, it's a significant investment. There's going to be a Bramble Spark into the Autumn's Touch.
Yeah, fused again, getting the embodiment of lightning to come down.
Right.
I think Rutkowski checking, is there going to be card draw off the back of that damage from the Bramble Spark as well? And the Force of Nature combining here with Coax a Commotion.
Wow.
10 big damage headed the way of Daniel Rutkowski.
That is a huge commotion being caused right now in the venue by Christopher Iaali's Coax coming down for 10. Again, you know, more potential card draw. It's got the go again, like you mentioned, from the Embodiment Earth, the Quicken token, part of the equation as well. And Daniel Rutkowski's already used 2 cards from hand, so the opportunities to, you know, soften the blow are limited. That said, he's still
at
39
some point,
health.
the shields are going to go down, and there's not going to be any more options. And if this combat chain keeps expanding, because we know more cards coming on the back of that Force of Nature, like I said, this matchup can spiral out of control very quickly.
Right. All right, yeah, pointing the Force of Nature, recognizing that the card draw is there.
Yeah, choosing modes. I think he's going to choose to draw a card here and just go ahead and load up a little bit more.
Yeah, quicken and draw.
Quicken
card,
tokens.
probably.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy choice in most cases for this.
And if you're in Daniel Rutkowski's seat, you're sweating a little bit right now. This is a very scary draw that Christopher Iaali just took with the right combination of cards. Frankly, though, this game could be over. It is within range of possibility.
It is pretty wild just how much damage has been done, and not just and when I say damage, I'm not necessarily talking HP. I'm talking about the ability for Daniel Rutkowski to respond on his turn, to be aggressive, right? The momentum has been seized by Christopher Iaali. Now he just needs to keep it.
There's a second Force of Nature there. And we could be going up to 2 pieces of card draw per turn.
You are correct.
If that flex hits.
What else do we got there? And again, you know, Christopher taking his time to think about it too. And you know, he and I talked a little bit after his quarterfinals game, and he said, you know, I felt I played that pretty well. I did miss 1 Final Spring Tunic counter, which bothered him greatly because, again, he's a very methodical player. Going to go ahead and just pitch the Force of Nature to throw in the Autumn's Touch, just throw in another 8 damage. Again, you know, that card draw option is there. It will get go again now because of the Quicken token, so this combat chain continues to be absolutely enormous.
Crazy damage output. Another card draw is going to come on the back of this Autumn's Touch. I want to point out Snapdragon Scalers still available. Flex in hand. Flex representing another 7 damage. The output has not slowed down one bit for Christopher Iaali here.
And I think if you're Christopher Iaali, you take this to the utmost limit. You push this turn as hard as you possibly can. no holding back at this point, because you know the moment you give that Phi some leeway, the damage is going to come back in earnest.
Yeah.
He's actually going to use the Aether Iron Weave now for a little bit of extra resources.
Earthlore Surge was the draw, though, and I believe it's a red one, further pumping this next attack, pushing more damage, and bringing another
Holy
piece
cow.
of card draw with it.
That's right. You are correct. There is the Earthlore Surge, and that's going to be that flex, and what a flex it is. We might need a bigger dice pretty soon, as that one's coming in for 12.
Sick flex, bro. Sick flex.
Yeah, not weird flex, sick flex. Literally maxing out the dice provided by the tournament organizer today. Gonna need a D20 for Christopher Iaali pretty soon.
Huge output here on these first 2 turns of the game from Christopher Iaali.
Now, thinking about it this way too, this would reduce Daniel Rutkowski down to 9 HP if this all goes through.
A terrifying life total, especially given the fact that Christopher Iaali would get an arsenal, and that's assuming these Snapdragon Scalers are not popped to just go ahead and roll the dice here. So we got to see what Chris needs to do.
I would be shocked if he decided to roll the dice with the
agree with you,
Snapdragon.
Doa.
That'd be more of a me kind of play, I
Me
think,
too.
than a Christopher
Me
Iaali
too.
play.
We're going to the casino, baby. Let's go.
It's the reason we're here and he's there, you
Absolutely.
know. But yeah,
Absolutely.
you certainly could. And I mean, if that would be imagine.
Look at this,
oh
though.
my
He
gosh,
likes it.
what?
He says, we're rolling the dice, baby.
Seriously? Okay.
Let's see what that top of the deck reveals.
Okay.
But I
He's
get it.
feeling it.
There
He's
is
in the
cards
zone.
here that, again, if Christopher Iaali hits, this game could just be over.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that, or you could see an Enlightened Strike drawn.
It's a Ravenous
It's a
Rabble.
Ravenous
It's a red
Rabble.
one. What's it going to reveal? Earthlore Surge off the top.
All right, it's only a measly 5 damage coming in at
is
the end
that
of that.
all?
But
Is that all?
you know, Christopher Iaali's saying, you know what? I put everything out there. Give me your last card, and we'll see if Daniel Rutkowski's willing to do that. I guess he's got more than a few cards to give yet. But going down to 4 damage, imagine that. 4 health to 25. It would have to be an absolutely incredible hand for Daniel Rutkowski to equalize this. You know, you need the God Phi hand, basically.
I mean, honestly, though, I don't know how quickly Daniel Rutkowski is going to be able to equalize and has to use the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx on defense here. And you hate to see that. Rutkowski's saying, if I go ahead and give Christopher Iaali an arsenal here, I don't think I can win this game anymore. And that has just earned the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx block. A huge win over those first 2 turns for Christopher Iaali, firmly in the driver's seat, looking to punch his tickets to the finals of the World Championship.
Honestly, like, that takes so much steam out of Daniel Rutkowski's deck.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's no Mask of Momentum concerns, and without the Mask of Pouncing Lynx, you know, that one-time effect that is so vital for bringing in those huge, massive damage turns with this deck specifically. Like, the game plan is to use that mask, right? So to have to give that up right now, that is devastating. That said, it is a Rise from the Ashes. He does grab the Phoenix Flame here. He does buff up his next attack plus 3 damage. Off to a pretty good start. Gonna just throw the Phoenix Flame out there, so that'll just be a 3 damage Phoenix Flame.
I will say I would be pretty shocked to see Christopher Iaali do any blocking on this turn. Has the tempo so soundly, has the life total lead, wants to use that life total to his advantage, just soak up some damage here, come back on the next turn with what looks like a pretty decent hand. I see an Enlightened Strike there, I see a Flex, so plenty of low-cost options, ways to get wide. And what you want to do if you're in Christopher Iaali's seat is present lethal. Take away Daniel Rutkowski's agency, make him make tough decisions, and you see just a 2 Phoenix Flame turn from Daniel Rutkowski. Has come so far in this World Championships, but starting to hear the footsteps, starting to hear maybe the end of his run here at the World Championships in 2022.
Well, that is a heartbreaking turn for Daniel, for Daniel Rutkowski. Yeah, is that just the 2 Phoenix Flame turn, only presenting 4 damage in total. I mean, you know, it's really tough to think about what you're going to do from here as the Phi player, right? I mean, your opponent still has things like Crown, that's going to be a little bit armor, that's filtering. You've got the grasp of the Arcanite as well. You know, there's armor on the board in the equipment slots for Christopher Iaali. He's obviously going to have the cards to use with it. You know, what in the world do you do if you're Daniel Rutkowski? Enlightened Strike presented here. It looks like I didn't see him draw off the top, so I would imagine.
No, I believe this is just a go again, I think the hand at this point is a Ravenous Rabble and a Flex. And if that Ravenous Rabble turns up red, I know it's not supposed to happen, but it does occasionally happen.
Sure.
You're looking at a 5, 4, and a 4, 13 damage presented potentially.
Yep.
Man, that's going to be so tough to come back from if you're Daniel Rutkowski.
I mean, if Daniel wins this game, it is going to be one of the greatest comebacks I've ever seen in Flesh and Blood.
Absolutely, but if anyone can do it, it is the Phi Master.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we've seen him just be a great player, obviously, but also just a great player of the game in general. Remember, he got here via his Icelander and his Dromai play as well, between playing Draft and between playing Blitz. There's Ravenous Rabble.
It is a
And
red
it's a
card.
red.
It's the nimblism off the top, and that means this Ravenous Rabble presents lethal. And I want to say something, Doa. There's a lot of debate over just how good Briar is, but what was never debated is the capacity for Briar to blow any deck out of the water, to just high roll, put together that Channel Mount heroic start, as we saw Christopher Iaali do in this matchup. And there's not a deck on the planet that can play that through that kind of output.
And that gains 2 cards from Daniel Rutkowski's hand here. And there's the flex like you're talking about, 4 more damage. Again, presenting that break point. You could do 1 card and, the armor. You could, or the equipment rather. You could do 1 card and just let 1 damage sneak through. Either way, Daniel's in a world of hurt right now. He's got that Arsenal card, keeps looking at it, keeps thinking about what he could possibly do. I wonder if it's maybe an Art of War or something like that. But I don't think you're going to get a lot of use out of it if that's the case. And I'm just trying to think of a way for Daniel Rutkowski to get back into this one, and I'm not seeing it. And there's both cards preventing all the HP loss, and it's just going to be a draw up for Daniel Rutkowski on his next turn.
Yeah, and that means Christopher Iaali is going to get to crack back again with a 4-card hand, no change in life total.
Yeah.
Just looking for that last big salvo, that last huge attack.
Oh, my goodness.
Looks like another Enlightened Strike, potentially a Nimblism, Tome of Harvest, and a Sigil of Suffering, so can use that Enlightened Strike to clean out that Sigil of Suffering, because it is all gas, no brakes right now for Christopher Iaali.
There's the Enlightened Strike coming through. Probably, like you said, sending the Sigil to the bottom. That's just going to be 8 damage. Go again, it looks like. No card drawn. So again, offering double what he needs lethal against Daniel Rutkowski. Another kind of, awkward amount of damage in that you're gonna need to give him 3 cards to prevent all of this. At least 2 to stay alive.
But Doa, Daniel Rutkowski has more problems than just that. He has a life total of 4. He has no arcane barrier whatsoever. And that Rosetta Thorn right now is certainly going to attack on this turn. There's no way that Tome of Harvest is heading to the arsenal. So expect to see 2 unblockable damage here. And that assumes that Daniel has the 3 blocks to not just have to commit maybe the entire grip to slowing down this Enlightened Strike. So you see 3 cards put in front here. Follow up, Pitch Tome. Go ahead and make a Grasp of the Arknight token as well and activate that Rosetta Thorn. So 3 arcane unpreventable coming through along with that 2 attack.
That is devastating, and it really comes down to the no arcane barrier. I mean, that's gonna do 3 right there minimum, and he's gonna be able to block the physical from the Rosetta Thorn, but you're gonna take 3, 2 from the Rosetta Thorn on the arcane, 1 from the Rune Chant, and that means that all Christopher Iaali needs to do is survive this next turn and then prevent 1 more arcane damage on his next turn, and he'll have locked up his spot in the finals.
And he has done it, Doa. He is gonna go ahead, make a Rune Chant here, activate Rosetta Thorn.
That's it.
Get the fist bump and move on to the finals.
Christopher Iaali gets through to the Flesh and Blood World Championship Grand Finals. SoCal representing here in San Jose, here in NorCal, interestingly enough. You can't say enough good things about Daniel Rutkowski, about the run he's had at U.S. Nationals, here at Worlds, second at Nationals, semifinals at Worlds. Even though his road ends here, still a massive year and really a clinic on taking Phi to a level that had not been seen before, I think, with that hero. So he ends the year on that note as well, even if it doesn't end in a win for him to get to the finals. But Christopher Iaali's Briar looking terrifying. It's going to be Christopher Iaali versus Michael Hamilton in the grand finals. That is, again, a rematch of the Pro Tour Lily Battle Hardened, if I remember correctly.
You are correct.
And an opportunity to send Briar into Living Legend status if Chris Iaali is able to win it.
Huge stakes in this match, Doa. Huge stakes. And
absolutely amazing.
Incredible play on the part of Daniel Rutkowski throughout the weekend. Again, coming up just short, but nothing to hang his head about. An outstanding performance. But right now, all the focus moves to Chris Iaali in that Briar deck. And, if it wasn't enough that there was $100,000 on the line, one of the most iconic heroes in the history of Flesh and Blood, Briar, sees her tournament existence on the line as well. Can Christopher Iaali be the one to send that hero to Living Legend status?
What does the world look like without Rosetta Thorn? We may find out soon if Christopher Iaali has his way, but either way, it is going to be a fantastic Grand Finals. Do not miss it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the most important game of Flesh and Blood so far in the game's history coming at you. Michael Hamilton versus Chris Iaali. It is going to be epic. Don't miss it. We'll see you in a few.